All right, what's up guys? So today's video, we're gonna be changing the power steering rack in this Dodge Dakota. So I have a replacement rack. The reason why we're replacing it is because the current rack is leaking from the cartridge. I showed you guys before, but I'll show you in a minute when we get under there where it's leaking from. It's the main cartridge where the input shaft from your steering column goes into. That's puking out. So it's actually cheaper just to replace it. I got a replacement one from AutoZone, and I think it's only like 140 bucks, give or take. So it's really just, it makes more sense to change it. So this is the one that we're going to be replacing it with. We just cracked open the box. Jonathan over here is gonna help us too.
Yes.
So
gotta put that in there.
Yeah.
So we can finally drive it.
Yeah, he's giving me a hard time about not driving it. So it's been a while. The Dakota, if you guys are stopping in for the first time, we got this truck. It was originally on a farm or a ranch, and it's seen better days, but it's starting to come around. So we're almost ready to be able to drive it on the road, but right now it's still puking out fluid, and that's what we've been working on. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch these two vehicles. So we're gonna put the truck over here so we can put it on the lift. We'll probably either put the Viper outside or put it back over there. And it's really not that much. If you guys take a quick look here, it's pretty much just two bolts that hold this rack on. You're gonna have your steering column that connects to there, and then your two tie rod ends. So I'll get into all the details on that, but let's rearrange the vehicles, and then I'll show you what we're gonna be doing. So first, I just got to top up the transmission fluid on the truck. In a previous video, we fixed the sensor, the neutral safety switch, and we lost a little bit of transmission fluid. So I'm just going to put some ATF4 in it, top it back up. The truck's in neutral running right now. So we'll top it back up within 2 marks, and we'll continue the video. So the truck is now up in the air, wheels are off. Next, what we're gonna do is we're going to, actually first thing we're gonna do is crack these lock nuts, these jam nuts. Reason we're gonna take these off is because once we start disconnecting it from the rack, everything's just gonna get loose and a little bit harder to disconnect. So we're gonna crack loose these two jam nuts, and then we'll remove the tie rod ends. And now we're gonna remove the tie rod ends so that we don't rip or break the boots, since these are good boots, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but it looks like we have Moog tie rod ends. We're just simply gonna loosen the crown nuts, take the cotter pin in, loosen the nut, and then we're gonna whack here, and that should free it and pop out. So that's our plan. Let's get to it. Oh, that's easy though. Oh wow. There, I got it.
How do you do this?
Okay guys, so we took out our tie rod ends. They're just loosely hanging here, so they're not dangling. Not that we're trying to save this old rack anymore, but we got the light on here so you can probably see a little bit more. So these two lines are gonna have to come off. These are our power steering lines. And also up here, we're gonna have to loosen, that's our steering column. So we're gonna have to loosen that. It's a 13 mil. There's also gonna be one on the top. I don't know, we might be able to get away honestly with just doing the bottom one. I'll find out as we get into it a little bit further. We might be able to just remove this one, and after we remove the two bolts that are holding the steering column on, you might just be able to slip it out of there and not have to go much higher. If not, we'll loosen the bolt up top and we can slide that all off as well. So anyways, that's where we're at. You can see the bushing is just pounded out of the steering rack too, so it's definitely due. Right here, our jam nuts are loose. So what we're gonna do is we'll end up either measuring it or counting our turns when we take it off. So once this comes out, you kind of just measure or count how many turns from taking it off, and then you can decide that way. So we got some stuff to do, but let's continue. We'll loosen this off, and then we'll continue to take this out. Jesus!
Oh, you got it.
Okay, so we took out that 13 mil bolt. We did put a screwdriver in there to try to split that. I only managed to get it, or me and Jonathan managed to get it like 1/2 inch up before it kind of stopped. So what we're hoping and thinking is once we take out the two bolts on the rack and we're able to drop it, we can just slide it out of there and we don't have to deal with trying to move the steering column up further. I did loosen this one, so we cracked this one loose, and now we're gonna loosen this one, but the way they kind of have it configured, you almost have to remove this before you can get a wrench on that, because trying to go from this side is a little bit hard. So we're gonna remove those two lines, and then we can remove these two bolts. I'm not sure what size this is just yet, but once I get a socket on it, we'll tell you what size it is. Stanley. I think we'll be able to get the other one. The other one looks a little nicer. Oh, I'm gonna. Oh.
Just a little bit.
Get scared or what? All right, guys. So we got all the bolts loose. We took out the 2 bolts that are holding the rack too. What size were they?
24.
It was a 24 millimeter. It might be an imperial size, but 24 impact socket did work for us. We zipped them out with the impact. Right now the rack is just sitting there. There's kind of like a little cross member on, at least on this Dakota. It kind of protects it, I guess, maybe from off-road type stuff. So it's resting on that, and Jonathan's pointing it out right now. And we're just gonna remove our 2 castle nuts from the tie rod ends, and we can lift it out of here.
You got it.
Apparently. I got it. All right, so the old rack is down on the ground, but we still have the tie rod ends on it. New rack is here in the box. So what we're gonna do is remove it. We're gonna put them side by side, and then we're gonna remove the tie rod ends from here. So just so that we're as accurate as possible, we're gonna be lowering the truck within the next month or so, I would say. So we're gonna need alignment soon anyways, but I wanna try to get it as close as possible. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna count the number of turns from taking it off, and that should get us close, but we're also gonna take a measurement from the last thread here, and maybe these knurls. We'll take a couple different measurements just to try to get as close as possible from the end of the tie rod here. So we'll take some measurements, count the turns, do the same for both sides, and then we'll put these tie rod ends on the new rack over here, and we'll be ready to put it back in. So we did multiple measurements, and we do want to show you one thing. Jonathan actually noticed this. You noticed this, right? So he noticed this. So just be careful when you check this out. So this is a tie rod that looks like obviously it's been refurbished or remanufactured. So see the threads here? If you're going to take different measurements, the threads have been cut closer to this kind of knurl or whatever you want to call this area. Whereas the original factory one, it had more like a 1/4 of an inch between these knurls and the threads. So we took some measurements from here to like a solid point on the rack, and it does look like they cut these back. So if you were gonna measure from the threads, because that's what we started to do and that's what you could do, but measure from the first thread to where the tie rod end starts. But we can't do that on this because like I said, the threads are cut a little bit further. So we were measuring from these knurls here. So just, we took 2 measurements, both from the knurls and from the first thread, but just be aware of something like that too. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna count the threads. So Jonathan's about to do it. I think you can just leave the lock nut tight.
Okay.
Like at least butt it up. Not tight, but at least you can get a reference point.
Okay, I'll hold that.
So
that's 1 turn.
Yep.
2, 3, 22, 23,
24. That was like exactly 24.
Yeah, that was 24.
Dude, I was honestly thinking it was gonna be like between 6 and 10. I didn't think it was gonna be 24. Yeah, I guess you have to take the jam nut, so just take it. Yeah. That's fine. So he's gonna take the jam nut off, put it back on. I don't think you guys want to watch us count 24 turns back, but we're gonna put it on, count 24 turns, tightening that on, and that should put us in spec. And then we have the measurements to double check it and to kind of fine tune it. So we'll do that on both sides, and then the rack should pretty much be ready to drop back in or lift it back in. All right, guys, so we're all ready to go. We got our tie rod ends on there. We double, triple checked our measurements according to John, and if it's not, he said he was gonna pay for a new alignment.
Not me.
And then we have to put these new O-rings on our lines here. So yeah, we gotta replace these old O-rings with these new ones, and we'll lift it up, put it in, reverse of everything. We'll just start putting the bolts in, all that good stuff, but we'll show you guys along the way. Let's get it done. All right, so we're gonna remove these O-rings. This camera doesn't really focus too well, but you can see they're just hammered out. These are actually used to be O-rings, and they're just flat and chewed, so they kind of just pop off here. I'm just using a little screwdriver, pop them off. But yeah, they're just years of heat and just being roasted. So taking those off, gonna disappear and lose them. We're just gonna put on these brand new fresh ones. So they're just O-rings. They used to be O-rings, the ones we just took off. There's 1, and here is 2. So that's it. 2 new O-rings. I'm gonna wipe down the cross member a little bit before we throw that up there, since it's got years of leaking fluid and just junk all over it and mud and anything else you can imagine. And then we'll throw the rack up. Throw that thing in the way first. Yeah. No, I got it. Be good then. All right, so Jonathan's got to run. We're gonna go get some fluid, but I'm gonna link his channel in the description below. He's got a bunch of Jeep content, and I told him he better produce more Jeep content too. So
yeah, Nodge Entertainment is the name of it.
Yeah, so we'll put the link in the description so you can at least find him, check him out. He's got some Jeep stuff if you're into Jeep stuff. But yeah, if you guys can see it out there, he's got the Jeep WJ, right?
WJ, yeah.
WJ, so he's been doing a bunch of wrenching on that himself, and I'm convincing him to do more on it, so check it out.
All right.
So we're back from the store. I've got the cap removed from the power steering pump, and here's the fluid we're going to be using. So just ATF4, and this is Valvoline. It's only like 6 something a bottle, so it's not too bad, but you can get this from Walmart and save yourself some money. So that's what we're going to put in, and let's go ahead. Okay, so you might be able to see the fluid. We filled it up, but it's not all the way down. So before we start this, we're gonna go over to the truck and just turn the wheel back and forth, and you'll hear the fluid drop down below, so without even starting it. So the fluid level is pretty high right now. It doesn't seem to be going down too much. So we're gonna start the vehicle and continue to turn it lock to lock and see where we're at. So here we go, let's start it. And we're gonna turn it. Okay, so we turned it all the way to the left, all the way to the right a bunch of times. And now we should be able to have a proper indication of where our fluid level is. So it looks like we should be pretty good, actually. Not that you guys can see this, but I'm gonna wipe off this dipstick and we'll double check it. All right, so our fluid level is good and we are done, you guys. So really not a whole lot to that procedure. It's the hardest part's gonna be taking it apart, like taking it off and dealing with any bolts or stubborn bolts or over tightened bolts, because I don't know if that was the original rack that was in there, but some of those like the power steering lines that go to and from the rack, they were ridiculously tight on mine. But we've got no leaks, we're all good, and I think we're almost leak free. One other interesting thing I found is when I was kind of staring at the power steering, area for a little bit, if you guys have been following along the channel, you'll know that we have an exhaust leak from this truck. So it has a ticking noise from the exhaust leak, and I just confirmed it because if you look at the corner right there where the exhaust manifold is, you can see the gasket sticking out of the corner right there. And when I put my hand there, obviously you don't want to burn yourself, but putting my hand there, I can feel the air puffing out the side, and you can see it actually spat the gasket out of the side of the manifold right there. So we confirmed it's an exhaust leak, so I'm not going to bother taking these off to just replace the gasket. So we'll definitely get some headers on the way so that we can upgrade these at the same time when we take them off. But at least we know it's just an exhaust leak. It sounded like one. Some people were worried it might be like a lifter tick or something internal, but it's just the exhaust, thankfully. So we are all done here, you guys. All right, so that's it for today's video, you guys. When I went to Walmart to go get the ATF4, you should have seen I've never seen it before, but there was like a huge fire, like the whole mountainside was on fire. Check this out real quick. Damn, check out that whole mountain's on fire. It was wild. All right, so it might be a little bit difficult to see, but that was nuts. I just wanted to share that with you guys. A little off subject, but I thought it was insane looking, so I had to capture it. But anyways, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you found it helpful, also let me know in the comments below. There's lots of other videos on this channel, lots to do with the Dakota and lots more on the way. We're not done with this Dakota as of the posting of this video, but we're doing a lot of DIY videos, helpful stuff like this, and also performance stuff. We've also done a 4th gen Ram, so a newer Ram that we supercharged and did a bunch of stuff to. So we're probably going to go down that path with this once we get all the maintenance items covered. But lots of stuff on the way. We also have the Viper that's hiding on the other side. So that, and we had this S2000 that we bought after it fell off a lift from the previous owner. So lots of stuff on here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because I promise it's going to be a lot of exciting content. See you on the next one.